President Elena Myrov stood on the viewing platform of the United Earth Command Center, her eyes fixed on the holographic displays that showed the charred remains of Colony 7. The attack had come without warning, leaving thousands dead and an equal number missing. As the leader of Earth, it was her duty to respond, and her response would be calculated and swift. "Update, General Hargreave," Elena demanded, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. General Hargreave, a seasoned military officer with a face etched by battle, turned from the display. "Madam President, preliminary scans suggest the attack utilized a form of energy weapon that is not currently in our arsenal. No prior threats or demands were made." This was a silent, brutal message. Elena nodded slowly. "A message," she mused aloud. "And one we will answer. Have we communicated with our allies in the Galactic Council?" "Yes, Madam President." But responses have been tepid. There's hesitation, possibly fear. This attack wasn't just a strike against us, it's a threat to the stability of the entire galaxy. That hesitation could cost us valuable time. Time during which we could be preventing the next strike. Arrange a secure channel to the Council. "It's time they hear our side loudly and clearly," Elena declared, turning back to gaze at the stars beyond the glass. As the screen lit up with the faces of various alien representatives, Elena straightened. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice resonant, "Earth has been attacked. Thousands of human lives were lost in an unprovoked assault on Colony 7. I stand before you, not just as the leader of Earth but as a guardian of peace, which we have all vowed to uphold." A murmur ran through the assembly, an uneasy shifting of scales and feathers. Nervous glances were exchanged. The Zeltrons, known for their militant policies, shifted uncomfortably. Myvan, the Zeltron representative, spoke. "President Myrov, while we sympathize with your loss, jumping to conclusions without evidence could be considered reckless. We must not disrupt the fragile peace with rash actions." Elena's gaze was icy as she replied, "With all due respect, Representative Myvan, peace cannot come at the cost of justice. Earth will conduct its investigation, and we will share our findings. We ask for your cooperation and for your support. Should you deny this, know that Earth will proceed alone if necessary." The screen blinked off, and Elena turned to her advisors. "Prepare our special task forces. I want a thorough investigation. Someone knows something, and I intend to find out what." This was a message, and I will deliver our response. Over the next few days, Earth's elite investigators, led by Commander Tyra Jensen, worked relentlessly. Tyra, a veteran in cyber warfare and tactical espionage, had assembled a team that represented the best Earth had to offer. In the depths of Earth's newly established forensic lab aboard the orbital station, Tyra and her team pored over the data. "Look at this," she pointed out to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Ramos. "The signature of the weapon. It's a hybrid. Partly ion-based, but there's something else. Something advanced." Ramos leaned in, squinting at the data streams. "Could it be?" "Yes," Tyra confirmed, "technology that's not supposed to exist outside the Galactic Empire's military. Someone's playing a very dangerous game." Back at the command center, Elena received the news. Her expression was grim but resolved as she addressed her closest counsel. "It seems we are dealing with a weapon that should be under strict control by the Galactic Empire. This suggests a betrayal of our treaties and possibly an internal enemy." Elena paused, considering her next steps carefully. "General Hargreave, assemble our forces. We must be ready for any outcome. In the meantime, I will go to the Galactic Summit. It's time for some hard truths." As Elena prepared for the journey, her thoughts were on the broader implications of her findings. This was no longer just about an attack on a human colony. It was about the very fabric of galactic relations and the trust between civilizations. Upon her arrival at the Galactic Summit, Elena was met with a mix of wariness and curiosity. As she took the stage, her presence commanded attention. "Fellow leaders," she began, "I come before you with findings most unsettling. The weapon used against Colony 7 originates from within our own ranks. We face not just an external threat but a possible internal corrosion. The assembly erupted in murmurs and whispers. Accusations flew, defenses were raised, and the tension was palpable. Elena continued, I urge all of you, for the sake of our shared future, to stand with Earth in rooting out this treachery. Let us bring the perpetrators to justice. Together, we can restore the balance and strengthen our bonds. Division will only lead to our collective downfall. As the summit concluded, alliances were tested, and new ones formed. Elena had not only spoken for Earth but had stirred a movement towards transparency and collective security. The path forward would be fraught with challenges, but Elena Myrov had proven that even in the darkest times, humanity would not falter. President Elena Myrov's image flickered into view on the holographic screens of the Galactic Council's chambers, her gaze stern and unyielding. As she stood in her command center back on Earth, her presence was felt across the stars, commanding the attention of all present. Esteemed council members, Elena began, her voice echoing in the vast chamber, I come before you not to plead, but to demand action. The attack on Colony 7 was not only an act against Earth but a threat to the stability of our entire galaxy. Across the galaxy, representatives of various alien species watched, their expressions ranging from skeptical to supportive. Among them was Threx, the council leader, a being known for his diplomatic acumen but also his cautious nature. Threx responded, his voice calm yet firm, President Myrov, while we share your concerns, we must not act in haste. We need proof, substantial evidence that ties the attackers to a member of the council. Elena nodded, her face betraying no emotion. Evidence you shall have, Leader Threx. Our investigation has uncovered that the weapons used in the attack are of a type developed in secrecy by a cabal within the Zeltran military, one of our own member species. A murmur ran through the chamber as all eyes turned to Myvan, the Zeltran representative, whose scales shimmered with discomfort. Myvan stood, indignant. These accusations are outrageous. Zeltran has always been a staunch ally of peace. You have no right. I have every right, Elena interjected sharply. When my people are slaughtered, it is my duty to seek out those responsible. We have traced the energy signatures and matched them with the prototype weapons missing from your own arsenals, Representative Myvan. Explain that. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Threx raised a hand for calm. We will consider this evidence, he said carefully. But we must discuss this matter privately. The council will convene in 1 hour. As the screen blanked, Elena turned to her advisors. Prepare for the next phase. Whether the council stands with us or not, we move forward with our plan. In the privacy of her office, Elena reviewed the data again, the images of the devastated colony burning in her mind. Her chief advisor, Jonas, stood by her side. They'll try to bury this, Elena. They fear what it means if you're right. They fear the truth because it disrupts the balance they so desperately cling to, Elena replied. But we will not be silenced. Not this time. Meanwhile, Commander Tyra Jensen continued her covert operations, delving deeper into the web of deceit. On a remote outpost, she and her team intercepted a communication between 2 high-ranking Zeltran military officials. Ensure all traces of the operation are erased, one voice said, distorted but discernible. No one must know of our involvement. Tyra captured the recording, sending it immediately to Elena. Madam President, we have them. Clear evidence of their involvement. With the new evidence in hand, Elena approached the council once more. This time, the holograms of the council members seemed less defiant, more resigned. Threx spoke first, President Myrov, the evidence you've provided is compelling. We cannot ignore it. What are you proposing? A joint task force, Elena stated. One that will allow us to root out not just those responsible for the attack on Colony 7 but also those within our ranks who would use our alliance for their own nefarious ends. Myvan, chastened and cornered, finally nodded in agreement. Zeltran will cooperate fully. We must clean our house if we are to regain trust. The council unanimously agreed to the formation of the task force, with Elena at its helm. As the meeting adjourned, Elena allowed herself a moment of relief. The battle was far from over, but for the first time since the attack, she felt the tide might be turning. Back on Earth, in the war room, her team gathered around, their faces a mix of fatigue and determination. "This is only the beginning," Elena addressed them. "We've won a significant battle today, but the war for our place in this galaxy, is just starting. We will find those responsible, and we will ensure that this never happens again. Not to us, not to anyone." As her team rallied, their resolve hardened, and the room buzzed with renewed energy. Elena Myrov knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she also knew that humanity was ready to meet them head-on. With truth as their shield and justice as their sword, they were united, and they were strong. Commander Tyra Jensen and her elite team crouched in the shadow of a derelict spacecraft on a remote asteroid belt, where intelligence suggested a secret meeting of the conspirators was to occur. The air was tense, the weight of the mission palpable in the silent communication between team members. "Positions, everyone," Tyra whispered into her comms device, her eyes scanning the rocky terrain through night vision goggles. "Remember, we need them alive for interrogation. We need to know who's behind the Zeltron faction and their motives." In the cold void, each team member moved with precision, their training evident as they took up strategic positions around the designated meeting spot. Tyra watched the time tick down on her wrist device until the first figures appeared, silhouetted against the stark lighting of a docking bay. As the figures converged, Tyra signaled to her sniper, "Hold until my mark." The conspirators, unaware of the ambush, began their exchange, their voices caught by Tyra's long-range microphones. "The attack on the human colony has stirred more trouble than anticipated. The council is now on high alert," one shadowed figure murmured. Another replied, "It doesn't matter. The plan is in motion. Soon the Galactic Empire will be ours to control. No more bowing to the council or pandering to Earth." Tyra's grip tightened on her weapon. This was the confirmation they needed, but she required names. "Wait for it," she breathed, her heart pounding in the silence of her suit. Just as one of the conspirators was about to speak again, likely to reveal a crucial piece of information, a rogue meteorite shower unexpectedly barraged the area, creating chaos. "Now!" Tyra yelled, her team springing into action as rocks and debris clouded the view. Laser beams cut through the darkness as Tyra's team engaged. The conspirators, caught off guard, scrambled for their weapons. In the frantic skirmish, Tyra tackled one to the ground, pressing her weapon to his chest. "Who are you working with? What's the end game?" she demanded, her voice a harsh whisper against his helmet. The conspirator struggled, his eyes wide with fear beneath the transparent visor. "You don't know what you're dealing with, human. This goes deeper than you think." Before he could say more, a stun blast from one of Tyra's team incapacitated him. Quickly, her team secured the remaining conspirators, binding their hands with magnetic cuffs. With the prisoners in tow, Tyra contacted President Myrov. "Madam President, we have them. And it sounds like we're just scratching the surface." Back on Earth, Elena Myrov awaited the arrival of the prisoners in a secure facility, her mind racing with the implications of Tyra's report. This was bigger than a rogue military faction, it hinted at a coup within the Galactic Empire itself. As the prisoners were brought in, Elena entered the interrogation room, her presence commanding. "You will tell me everything," she stated, no question in her voice, only certainty. "Who is behind the Zeltron faction? What is the endgame?" Under the harsh light of the interrogation beam, one of the conspirators, his resolve broken, began to talk. "There's a council within the council, influential members across the galaxies. They want to reshape the Galactic Empire, eliminate the weak links, and impose a new order. And Earth was just a stepping stone?" Elena asked, her anger barely contained. Earth was a message. To show the council we could reach anyone, anywhere, he confessed, his voice a mix of defiance and resignation. Elena processed the information, her mind formulating the next steps. "Thank you for your cooperation," she said coldly, signaling for the guards to take him away. Later, in a closed session with her top advisors and military commanders, Elena laid out the plan. We expose this council within the council. We bring this to the Galactic Summit. They think Earth is a mere pawn in their games. We will show them that Earth leads. The plan was bold, involving not just diplomatic maneuvers but also covert operations to gather more evidence against the conspirators. Each member of the team understood the stakes, higher than any of them had faced before. As the team dispersed, Elena stayed back, looking out into the night sky from her office window. The stars, once symbols of hope and exploration, now seemed to mock her with their tranquility. But her resolve was firmer than ever. Earth would not be intimidated, nor would it stand alone. With a new dawn approaching, Elena Myrov was ready to fight for her planet and bring about a new era for the galaxy. This battle was not just for survival, but for the soul of the Galactic Empire. In the hushed, tense atmosphere of the Galactic Summit's main chamber, President Elena Myrov stood before the assembly, the weight of her discovery heavy in her words. With the gathered leaders of numerous star systems looking on, Elena's voice filled the room, resonant and commanding. Ladies and gentlemen of the Galactic Council, Elena began, her tone resolute. We are at a crossroads. Recent events have brought to light a conspiracy that threatens not just Earth but the very fabric of our galaxy. The room was rife with anticipation, every representative waiting, some with bated breath, others with skepticism painted across their features. Elena held up a data pad, its screen flickering with intercepted communications and evidence gathered from the recent covert operations. This evidence, she continued, details a plan orchestrated by a shadow council within our own ranks. A plan to overthrow the existing order and impose a new one, built on the ruins of manipulated chaos and forged alliances. Murmurs filled the chamber, a mix of disbelief and fear. Threx, the council leader, called for order. President Myrov, these are grave accusations. How do you propose we proceed? Elena's gaze swept the room, her posture steady and unyielding. I propose an immediate audit of all military activities and communications within the council. We must root out this corruption from within before it festers and breaks us apart. A representative from the Zeltron system, where the rogue faction had been most active, stood up, his face a mask of concern. And what if we find that members of our own species are implicated in this conspiracy? Then they face justice, Elena declared. No one is above the law. Not on Earth, not here. The integrity of our council, our galaxy, depends on transparency and accountability. The debate that followed was fierce, with several factions expressing their concerns about privacy and the potential for misuse of the audit as a political weapon. Elena listened, her expression composed, before addressing their concerns. Understand that this audit will be supervised by an independent panel, selected by this council, she explained. Every step will be transparent, every finding subject to review. We seek not to sow division but to preserve unity. As the council voted, the tension was palpable. The resolution passed, but barely, with a slim majority. The room erupted into subdued conversations as the implications of the decision began to sink in. In the days that followed, Elena worked tirelessly, coordinating with the audit teams and ensuring that the investigations were thorough and fair. Data from across the galaxy was scrutinized, communications decoded, and alliances tested. Finally, the results of the audit were ready to be presented. The council reconvened, and Elena once again took the podium, her presence commanding silence. The audit has confirmed our fears, she announced. Members of the Shadow Council have been identified, their plans laid bare. These individuals, from various species and systems, sought to manipulate us all for their gain. The evidence was irrefutable, and as it was displayed on the screens around the room, the shock and anger were palpable. Calls for immediate action rang out, and Elena nodded in agreement. As we decide on the fate of those implicated, let us remember the principles upon which our council was founded, she said. Justice, unity, and peace. Let these principles guide us as we rebuild and fortify our defenses against such threats in the future. The council agreed to a series of reforms to prevent such a conspiracy from ever taking root again. New security protocols were established, and a more rigorous vetting process for military and political appointments was implemented. As the summit concluded, Elena felt a weary satisfaction. The galaxy had been on the brink of chaos, but through determination and unity, disaster had been averted. Returning to Earth, Elena was greeted not just as a leader who had defended her planet, but as a visionary who had preserved the peace of the galaxy. Her resolve had been tested, but her commitment to justice and peace had never wavered. In her office, looking out into the stars, Elena allowed herself a moment to reflect. The galaxy was vast, its challenges immense, but she knew that as long as there were those who stood for truth and justice, there was hope. Hope that the next generation would inherit a galaxy not of conflict and conspiracy, but of cooperation and peace. This battle was over, but the journey continued. Elena Myrov was ready, as ever, to lead the way. As the aftermath of the summit settled like dust across the galaxy, President Elena Myrov addressed her world and its allies with the poise and gravitas that had become her hallmark. The broadcast was live, reaching every corner of human space and beyond, her words a beacon of strength and resolve. "Today, we turn a new page in our history," Elena began, her tone imbued with both relief and determination. The challenges we faced were not just attacks on our colonies or threats to our peace, they were tests of our unity and our resolve as a galactic community. Across countless systems, citizens and representatives listened, reflecting on the recent upheavals that had shaken the very foundation of their interstellar society. Elena continued, "The corruption we uncovered was a cancer that thrived in secrecy and silence. But together, we excised it with the scalpel of transparency and the antiseptic of justice." The reforms that Elena had championed were sweeping and profound. A new Galactic Oversight Commission was established, tasked with maintaining the checks and balances that would prevent such a crisis from ever arising again. Elena detailed the Commission's role. "This body will not only oversee but also ensure that the principles of our Galactic Council are upheld by all, without prejudice or pause." In the days that followed, Elena met with her cabinet and several alien delegates who were instrumental in passing the reforms. Together, they drafted new treaties and trade agreements, reinforcing the bonds that the crisis had threatened to sever. "Let this be a lesson to us all," Elena told them during a strategy session. "Our diversity is not a weakness but our greatest strength. We must continue to learn from each other, to support each other, in all our endeavors." Meanwhile, on Earth and across other human colonies, celebrations erupted. People hailed Elena not just as a savior but as a visionary leader who had steered humanity through one of its darkest hours. Parades filled the streets, and images of Elena alongside alien representatives adorned cityscapes, symbols of a new era of cooperation and peace. But the work was far from over. In her office, Elena reviewed reports from the newly formed commission, pleased with the progress but aware of the challenges ahead. She knew that vigilance was the price of liberty and peace. One evening, as she gazed out at the stars from the window of her office, her communications director approached her with a message. "Madam President, there's a call for you from the leader of the Zeltron system. They want to discuss a new educational exchange program." Elena smiled, approving the call. "Thank you, bring it up on the screen." Conversations like these were the building blocks of the new galaxy she envisioned, one where knowledge and culture flowed as freely as trade and diplomacy. As she spoke with the Zeltron leader, her vision for the future became even clearer. "Together, we can ensure that the next generation inherits a galaxy not defined by its past conflicts but by its potential for growth and understanding." The call ended with mutual assurances of support and collaboration. Turning from the screen, Elena felt a rare moment of contentment. The galaxy was vast, and its problems were complex, but they were not insurmountable, not as long as there were those willing to stand up for what was right. Later, at a commemorative event, Elena addressed a crowd of young people from various species, each eager to contribute to the galaxy's future. "You are the architects of tomorrow," she told them. "Build a world you can be proud of, one that cherishes peace and justice above all." As the event concluded, Elena stayed back to speak with the attendees, each conversation reinforcing her hope and commitment to the galaxy's future. These young faces, full of potential and promise, were her true legacy, a legacy that would continue to shape the cosmos long after her presidency. In the quiet of her office later that night, Elena penned a message to future leaders, encapsulating her philosophy and her hopes. It was a manifesto of sorts, a guide for those who would one day take up the mantle she would eventually lay down. As she sealed the message in a time capsule to be opened 50 years hence, she allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The galaxy she had fought for was not perfect, but it was on a better path, thanks to the courage and unity of countless individuals. Elena Myrov had faced the greatest challenge of her career and emerged not just victorious but transformative. Her journey had changed the galaxy, but more importantly, it had affirmed a fundamental truth: together, united in purpose and action, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The stars, once distant and cold, now seemed warm with the light of possibility.